Hey guys, how are you? This is my last video on Hagar. But before I start, if you have a habit of only listening to my short videos and not actually watching them, you may have picked up on a little mistake I made on my previous one. Instead of saying Adam, I misspoke and said Abraham. I think this was when I asked what was the very first question that God asked that's recorded in the Bible. I did make a correction on the subtitles, but if you only listen to the audio, you may have probably not picked up on it. So I just want to apologize for any confusion that I may have caused there. Imagine living a life where you are considered a prince, a promised son, the darling that they waited for many decades. And then suddenly, you're not the prince anymore. That was Ishmael at 13 years old. There was an assumption in that family. It was just assumed that he was the heir of Abraham and Sarah. You know, during the 1960s, there was a movement called the hippie movement. It started here in San Francisco, actually not too far from where we live. It's about 45 minutes to 1 hour ride on any given day. And some of those hippies moved from San Francisco to Santa Cruz, which is another coastal city just along the beautiful California coast. The hippies got married and had children, though necessarily not in that very particular order or sequence, you know, hippies. But the thing that is interesting here is they didn't name their children Kate or Melissa or Brian or Fred. It's not one of those regular normal names. They picked names like Moonbeam, Earth, Love, Precious Promise, Spring Fever. You know, names that were a little bit off, a little bit weird. But then eventually all these kids ended up in a public school, and on the first day of school, the parents proudly put name tags to their children. They kissed them goodbye and they took them to the place where the school buses came to pick them up. At school, this is the first day of school, there was this kid with the name Fruit Stand. He had a tag and it said Fruit Stand. The teachers thought that this particular boy's name was a little more odder than the ones that they are used to, but you know, they tried to make the best of the situation. So the teacher asked, "Would you like to play with the blocks, Fruit Stand?" And then later on the teacher said, "Fruit Stand, would you want a snack?" And as the day progressed, the teacher tried to make little conversations, tried to engage with the child, and she said, "Fruit Stand this and Fruit Stand that." And by the end of the day, his name actually didn't seem really odd at all. It just felt normal, just like the other kids, like Franklin or Fred. Pretty soon the day was done. It was dismissal time. The teacher took the children out to the bus stop, to the buses where, you know, the school buses gather and, you know, collect the kids. She said, "Fruit Stand, do you know which one is your bus?" But he didn't answer. Actually, he didn't answer all day, so that wasn't unusual. You know how a lot of kids are on the first day of school. They actually don't talk very much, and then later on they talk so much. So the first day is a little bit off. So it didn't matter. The teacher thought, okay. And then she suddenly remembered that she asked the parents to write the names of their children's bus stops on the reverse side of their name tags. So the teacher simply took the child a little bit closer, took the tag and flipped it around, and there it was, neatly printed, the word Anthony. That was his name, and the bus stop was, of course, the Fruit Stand. Assumptions, they're really funny, but for people who are going through them, it's frustrating. That was Ishmael's life. The first 13 years of Ishmael's life was an assumption that he was the promised child of Abraham, an assumption that he was the heir they waited for decades, that they prayed for. We pick up Hagar's story after that encounter with God in the desert many years ago. Remember when she ran away? Anyone who has an encounter with the living God will not be unchanged. There will be a transformation in every individual who encounters God. The one thing I really love about Hagar's story is Any interaction or dialogue or conversation she had that has been recorded in the Bible was only between her and God. We actually do not see one line of dialogue between either her and Sarah or her and Abraham, or actually for that matter even her and her son Ishmael. It's actually not that they never talk to each other, and I don't think that would be accurate, would it? I don't think that would be possible even. But what really mattered in her life were the conversations she had with God. Those were the only recorded conversations in the Bible. Those were her transformational interactions. Isn't it so true in our lives too? We talk or interact with so many people on a daily basis, whether it's on the phone or in person or online. But the only conversations or interactions that transform us or change us or make a lasting impact on us is the interaction we have with the Lord. No one can encounter the living God and remain unchanged. It's simply not possible. Picking up from a few days ago when I posted the video on Hagar, Hagar gives birth to a son. She names him Ishmael, the name that the Lord spoke and gave in the desert. And 13 years has passed since then. And let's say they reasonably had a pretty happy life, given the fact that Sarah and Hagar and Abraham, it's a difficult relationship. Let's say they had a pretty reasonably happy life. And then Sarah becomes pregnant at 90 years old. Can you imagine the confusion that Hagar had when she first heard that Sarah was pregnant? Hagar might have scratched her head and thought, God, you promised me this son. You named him. You said that you will increase my descendants so much so that they'll be too numerous to count. What's happening here, Lord? Abraham was actually just as shocked and surprised when the Lord told him that he will have a son through Sarah. He simply laughed and he said, Oh, will a son be born to me, a man who is 100 years old? Will Sarah bear a child at the age of 90? I'm happy with Ishmael, Lord. I just want Ishmael to be under your blessing. I don't want anything else. That was what his intention was. I'm good. Sometimes the good things in our lives keep us from having the God things. We just settle for the good things and we are happy with the good things. And we assume, well, these are the good things. But good sometimes is the enemy of the best. Don't be afraid to let go of the good things. Because when you do, God things will start happening in your lives. God things will happen. Let go of the good things. God will do wonders in your life. So, as the story goes, Sarah gives birth to Isaac, and after the child is weaned, Abraham throws a big party, a huge feast to celebrate. And lo and behold, Sarah catches Ishmael making fun of Isaac. The apple does not fall too far from the tree, does it? Ishmael seems to be repeating the same old mistake his mom did. Hagar despised Sarah, and Ishmael is now committing the same mistake of mocking Isaac. Sarah looks at that and she says, That's it. You guys are out of my house. She tells Abraham, Get rid of that slave woman and her son, because that woman's son will never share in the inheritance with my son Isaac. Just imagine Abraham. Abraham is absolutely grieved. But then God intervenes. He comforts Abraham and gives him some clarity. He says, Don't be distressed, Abraham. Don't be distressed about Ishmael and your slave woman. Isaac is your promised son, but I will bless Ishmael into a nation also. Don't be upset. I got this under my control. Let me read from Genesis 21st chapter, verse 14. Early the next morning, Abraham took some food and a skin of water and gave them to Hagar. He set them on her shoulders and then sent her off with the boy. She went on her way and wandered in the desert of Beersheba. Abraham just had a celebration for Isaac, but all that Hagar and Ishmael are going out with is some bread and water. Did he give her a donkey for a ride? I don't think so. Any escorts or companions for their trips to see them off, to drop them off? No. Do you remember that Abraham had a homegrown army? He was the wealthiest man in the region. I really don't want to speculate why more provisions were not given to them, why people were not sent to, see them through. But this is how Hagar and Ishmael left the house with just some bread and water, enough to carry in their own hands. They were sent out into this uncertain cloud, into this harsh desert conditions. I want you to remember that the provisions or help or comfort that people give us will always run out. It is never meant to satisfy us. It will not last. It will not sustain us or carry us through the journey of life. I love this verse in the Bible. I think it is in Psalms. It says, "It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princesses or in people." It's right in the middle. It's, I think, the center verse in the Bible. It's right in the middle. It is to remind us that the bread and water that people give will run out. But the bread and living water that Jesus gives will never run out. He is the bread of life. He will sustain us through eternity. He is enough in every situation. Maybe you've looked to people for your supply or comfort or protection or sustenance or help, whatever it is. And maybe you have now come to a point where it all ran out. Let me tell you something. Good news is just around the corner. The moment you come to the point where you realize that the bread and water people give is not enough to sustain you, God is waiting right around the corner with good news. I want to read from verse 15. When the water in the skin was gone, she put the boy under one of the bushes. Then she went off and sat down nearby, about a bowshot away, for she thought, "I cannot watch the boy die." And as she sat there nearby, she began to sob. She began to sob. She's used, abused, and abandoned. And as her tears fell in the dry desert sand, she may be thinking, "I'm here again." And now with Ishmael, she feels lost. She's wandering in the desert. Her son is lying there. She's shattered and broken and worn out, and she's wailing. But what echoed in the heaven is the boy crying. In verse 17 it says, "God heard the boy crying, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, 'What is the matter, Hagar? Do not be afraid. God has heard the boy crying as he lies there. Lift the boy up and take him by the hand, for I will make him into a great nation.'" Can you imagine? Their sobs, Hagar's tears, Ishmael's tears are echoing in heaven. God says, "What's the matter, Hagar? What's happening? What is going on? Why are you crying?" Now, I don't know if you remember, last week I said God questions us for confession. God confronts us so that we can confess. But this particular question is for comfort. I don't know about you, but when my kids fall and get hurt, I run to them and say, "Oh, why are you crying? Why are you crying?" It's almost like, "Hey, don't cry. I'm here." God is asking, "What is the matter, Hagar?" Not as being ignorant of her case, but in order to relieve her, to comfort her. He's saying, "Hagar, don't be afraid. I'm here. I'm your protector. I'm your provider. I'm El Roi. I'm a God who sees. But now I'm going to help you see in a new way. I'm going to give you eyes of faith. I'm going to open your eyes." Hagar right now is seeing death around her. She is seeing Ishmael struggle for thirst. He could die at any moment. But God who sees, God who's El Roi, opened her eyes to see beyond the natural. He gave her the eyes of faith to see a miracle. And in verse 19, "Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. So she went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy a drink." First, she was seeing death around her, and then God opened her eyes. This is the first instance in the scripture that God opened someone's eyes. And after this, we see many instances where God opened people's eyes. Hagar was like, I once was blind, but now I see. She has a faith. She has eyes to see beyond the natural. And in verse 20, it says, God was with the boy as he grew up. He lived in the desert and became an archer. Hagar may have lost temporary comfort and security in Abraham and Sarah's house, but she gained so much more. She was no longer a slave. She was not bound to a human being anymore. She was not treated as a second-class citizen. But God is now her provider. She gained an experience that is worth everything. She came into an experiential knowledge of the living God who never stopped pursuing her, who never stopped protecting her wherever she went. And the cool thing is, she did eventually have a very good life. If you turn to Genesis chapter 25, the chapter where it's recorded about the death of Abraham, and if you see verse 12, it says, this is the account of Abraham's son Ishmael, whom Sarah's maidservant Hagar the Egyptian bore to Abraham. And then a few verses list the names of Ishmael's sons. And in verse 16, it says, these were the sons of Ishmael, and these are the names of the 12 tribal rulers according to their settlements and camps. 12 tribal rulers. Now, I don't know about you, but if I had 12 grandsons and each of them is a ruler of a place or maybe a governor of a place, I would feel pretty honored. I would feel pretty special, wouldn't you? Hagar did have a very happy ending. The water that Abraham gave did run out, but the water that God gave her sustained her, satisfied her, and supplied for her throughout her life. God sees us through all seasons of our life. He's El Roi at all times. He's not a God just for one season. How comforting is that? To wrap this up, I want to remind you of these three things. When you have an encounter with God, you will be changed forever. Number 2, do not depend on the provisions that people give. Why? Because they don't last. God who sees us will also give us the eyes to see beyond the natural. You need to just lift your voice and ask. I hope this was a blessing for you. I'll see you again in the next video.